Oh, we're live. It's not Memorex. Good morning. We are in still in chapter 17 of the Revelation of Jesus Christ. Last few weeks we've been talking about the woman called the Great Whore, the mother of harlots, Babylon, the Great. And it's so important for us to understand that. That's why we took, I think, 2.5 weeks or 3 weeks to do that, because she represents all religions that have chosen to adopt man's view versus what God's revealed view is of what worship is all about. We took it all the way back to the Tower of Babel, Nimrod, the rebel, the hunter of men's souls, where he established a kingdom, the first kingdom, and we'll get that in a little bit. But within his kingdom, he also ordained the first religion after the flood. Now we also have to remember that chapter 17 and chapter 18 are kind of a parathenic chapters. In chapter 16, God poured out the full wrath called the bowl judgments. And so John saw the devastation of God's judgment. All water systems becoming blood. All the sea creatures dying. No fresh water, darkness, you name it. And so God is kind of showing us in chapter 17 and 18 why. Why he did that. For what reason he had to show us and do these judgments. And you have to understand this, that God's judgments on mankind is his last result. He's tried everything he can to reconcile mankind to himself, and they've refused. And that's all that's left is judgment. So we've talked about the woman. Now we're going to discuss about the beast. So I want to go back in chapter 17. We're going to begin reading in 17:3. Then we're going to jump ahead a little bit, and we're going to discuss what's going on. Because remember, God is showing John what's going on, why he's judged, the wherefores, the whys, the whos. So in Revelation chapter 17, verse 3, so he, the angel, carried me, John, away in the spirit into the wilderness, and I saw a woman sit upon a scarlet-colored beast, full of the names of blasphemy, and having 7 heads and 10 horns. All right? So here's your picture. You have this scarlet or red-colored beast that this woman is sitting on. And this beast has 7 heads and 10 horns. So let's go a little bit farther into chapter 17. In verse 7, and it says, the angel said to me, John, why did you marvel, or why were you so curious, or what were you confused about? I will tell you the mystery of the woman, which we've already discussed, and of the beast that carries her, which has 7 heads and 10 horns. Okay. Now, if you drop down with me a little bit to verse 9, we find out, and here is the mind which has wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 mountains on which the woman sits. And they are 7 kings, 5 are fallen, 1 is, and the other is yet to come. And when he comes, he must continue a short time. So, let's go back into chapter 13 where we first met this beast. Now, I want you to look at this real quick. What color is the beast? Red. Okay, that's very important to understand. So go back to chapter 13 with me. Revelation 13. In verse 3. Actually, let's go to verse 1. And John says, I stood about the sand of the sea, and I saw a beast rise up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns. Right? So we see that this beast in chapter 13, which we were just introduced to, now is being explained in chapter 17. Now, what you have to understand here is in verse 1. Do you see red or scarlet anywhere in this? It's just called a beast.
Yeah.
So there has to be something, an additional information that helps us understand who this scarlet beast is and what is going on. So with that, we need to go back into chapter 12. And in verse 3.
Red dragon.
And there appeared another wonder in heaven, and behold, a great red dragon, having 7 heads and 10 horns. Now we're getting a better picture, because in chapter 12, the red dragon is also the old serpent, and it is Satan himself. Okay? So in chapter 13, we find the beast. The beast out of chapter 13 is the Antichrist. So what we have, if we take chapter 17, which is the red beast, and add chapter 12 and 13 together, we find that Satan is the influence behind the Antichrist, the beast out of chapter 13. He's controlling and will control this being called the Antichrist. So we now find out that this beast was revealed to us who he was in 13, but we need to add to chapter 12 so that we can get the picture in chapter 17. Does that make sense? Because in 13, it doesn't call him a red beast. It just says the beast out of the sea. In chapter 12, we find out he's red. And that red dragon is Satan. So, what does this mean? Let's go back to chapter 17 now that we've cleared that up. In chapter 17, verse 3, so he carried me away, the Holy Spirit, or the angel carried John away to this wilderness, and I saw a woman sitting upon the scarlet-colored beast, full of names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns. All right, so 7 heads and 10 horns we found out in verse 7 and verse 9 that these horns represent kingdoms. What or who is the influence of these worldly empires? Now remember, there's 5 have already come. 1 is, and there will be another one. So I can take you back into Daniel in 2 or 3 places, but I want to understand what this represents. We need to look at history. Who or what are the great historical and biblical empires or kingdoms that ruled this world historically? Well, first we had Egypt. They were the great world empire. Then we have Assyria. They were the second great world empire. Then Babylon defeated Assyria. So Babylon would be a third great empire. The Medo-Persia defeated Babylon. So they would be the fourth world power. And then Alexander the Great in Greece defeated the Medo-Persian reign. So they would be the 5 that have fallen. John says in the Revelation that 1 is. Well, when John was writing this on the island of Patmos, who was the ruling empire and kingdom of this world? What was it? Anybody know? No? Rome. Rome. Who are the Caesars? Who remember I said when Caesar Augustus made a proclamation that all men may have to return to their home country, that's where Jesus was born, because Joseph was of Bethlehem, of Bethlehem, right? So the Roman government or the Roman power or empire was at this present time controlling the world, the then known world. Okay, so that you have now 5 that are fallen, 1 that is, and then you're going to have Assyria, Babylon, Greece, Roman. Okay, now you're going to have one coming. Well, according to Daniel's prophecy, and if you're familiar with chapter 1 of or 2 of Daniel, which we'll go back now, we'll find out that Daniel saw, that King Nebuchadnezzar saw in his dream this huge colossal image whose head was of gold, whose chest and arms were of silver, whose torso was brass, and whose legs were iron. Okay? They represented Babylon, Medo-Persia, Greece, and Roman. But then you find that he had the last kingdom was going to be 10 toes mixed with clay, which means it's going to be, it's the iron and mixed with clay means it's going to be the revised Roman Empire of the last times. So what we have to understand here is that this beast, if you'll notice in chapter 17, is carrying the woman. He's supporting the woman. He's enabling the woman. He's influencing the woman. The woman stands for all false religion. So all these kingdoms that had the origination of Babel at the Tower of Babel, who Nimrod, for his own, while he appointed himself dictator of the then known world. Remember, he brought everybody together and said, let us make a name after ourselves. Let's have a rallying point where we can all stay together and disregard what God had said. Why? Because it calls him a rebel of God. And in that rebel of God, he rejected God's authority in his life and instead placed himself as the ultimate authority. As the ultimate authority, he came up with various ways to worship him. Now, Satan has 2 goals in life. One is to hinder mankind from worshiping the one true God, and 2, that all of mankind would worship him. That's his 2 goals. Well, he has that other goal, that is to remove Christ Jesus from the Bible, but that's a different story. So look what happens here. All of the kingdoms that John is seeing here, represented by the 7 heads, which also are 7 mountains, which describe 7 kingdoms or empires, all of them had one thing in common, and that is that they worshiped false gods. Egypt had multiple false gods. Assyria had multiple false gods. Babylon had multiple false gods, and continue all the way through it. And the reason you need to know this is because Satan is behind this great whore, this mother of harlots, who is encouraging, who is involving, who is enabling, who is influencing the continuation of religions without God. So we see in chapter 17 that this woman is seated on the beast. He's carrying her. It's his influence that is allowing her to flourish. in Ephesians chapter 6, we read verse that we do not fight against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers. We fight against the rulers of darkness of this world. Who are the rulers of the darkness of this world? These seven kingdoms and the satanic influence behind them. So this woman is seated on the back of this beast. The scarlet colored beast, because it's not only just the Antichrist at this time, it involves Satan's desire and Satan's influence throughout all mankind's what? All mankind generations, I guess would be the best way to put it. Ever since the flood. And so it's evolved. And maybe people think of today as idolatry as, we're too smart for that. We're too intelligent. We're too evolved to worship idols. Well, you may not worship a statue of a bug like Egypt did. You may not worship a statue with a lightning bolt in his hand like Phoenicia did. But anything that dethrones God's authority in our life is idolatry. Anything. In Mark chapter 12, verse 30, we're told, you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your strength, with all your mind, and with all your soul. I don't know if I said it in the exact chronological order or order that they said, but it's that. So we're supposed to put God first. Jesus has told us in Colossians, he has preeminence. So anything that we would give credit for that belongs to God is idolatry. Self-satisfaction means that you are providing your own life of satisfaction, where instead of Jesus is my satisfaction. If we put anything in place of Jesus in our lives that controls us more than he does, that is called idolatry. And that is what judgment is coming on. That's why he's showing us this thing. He's not only showing us a picture of the future, what's going to happen, but he's showing us from the beginning from the flood all the way through mankind, including 2025. So let's look at this in our ways. Because none of us are going to meet this standard. But I ask you a question. Do you love the Lord with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength? That's pretty much everything, isn't it? Is he first in every aspect of our life? Before we make any decision, do we consult him? I just thought of something. I want to quick go back there. In Psalm 32. You don't have to go there. Because by the time someone to get there, I'll already have it read. But it says this. I should know it by heart because I love it. God says, I will instruct you. I will teach you in the way. I will guide you with my eyes. So in other words, he is supposed to be our guiding light. Not like the soap opera. But everything that we are and everything that we do should revolve around him. Should we go to concerts? Let's ask God instead of just going there. Should I invest in this? Let's ask God. So before we do it this way, should I buy this house? Should I date this man? Should I date this woman? Should I buy this car? He doesn't want to be involved in part of your life. If Jesus is in all your life, he's not in your life. So don't be telling me that, well, I go to church or I read the Bible. I want to know what you're doing for the rest of the week. Is he the center of your life? That's what idolatry is all about. And that's what this beast is all about. Why the great whore is riding him. Because he is the final influence for mankind, that they would accept the doctrines that you can live for yourself, live for your own by your own strength, and still be pleasing to God. Okay? So that's number one we want to talk about today. Number two, Let's look at this now. So the mountains represent kingdoms or worldly empires that Satan has influenced and controlled through the great whore, the mother of harlots, because it's her influence into mankind that removes Christ as the center. But we're not done there. Go to chapter 17, verse 13. Let's get start beginning with chapter 12. I'm sorry, chapter 17, verse 12.